was amused. The episode was enough to give Richards the edge. But on election night, the power brokers and lobbyists thought otherwise. They gathered at Clady's hotel waiting for a victory party that never happened. By 9 o'clock, they realized the action was elsewhere.
They started streaming in about 10 o'clock that night after it was pretty clear who'd won. And I don't know, it just looked like a train coming in. Look at that. There comes chemical and there comes oil. Hi, guys. Timber. Insurance. Hello. It was pretty funny.
What is it about Texas politics that always gets as dirty as it can get?
Out of the gutter and into the sewer. It really was just awful.
She messed it up! This is the last person you want to talk to. Let me tell you, Molly Evans and I have been through a lot together. And when she tells the story, I know that I was there. But it doesn't bear any resemblance to what happened.
And I believe in improving.
Well,
I know it.
Improving.
I'm trying to get a little bit of truth. You understand what that is?
Wait a minute. Y'all, he wants the truth and he's asking Molly.
From her first days as governor, she served notice that it was not going to be business as usual in Texas. More than half of her appointments went to women and minorities. The big question is, can she loosen the grip that big business has on state politics? Well, in less than a year in office, she's managed to push her agenda down the throat of a recalcitrant legislature. She got an environmental bill to curb the chemical industry, a law to regulate the insurance business, even an ethics bill. She'll probably get a state lottery to help pay for education. She is nonstop in her dealing and her wheedling. And when given center stage, she uses that mouth like a scalpel.
Poor George.
The line about George Bush being born with a silver foot in his mouth overnight became a national joke, regardless of people's politics. It was a genuinely great
line.
Great line.
I couldn't resist it. When you get a good line, you have to go with it. And I thought it showed great good sport on his part to send me a silver foot pin. You know, I did. I like it. I wear it when he comes to the state. A woman always should wear a gentleman's jewelry when he calls.
But there also is the suggestion about you that when it comes down to politics, there are no rules.
It's probably true. That's probably true.
Have you ever done anything in a campaign you wish you hadn't?
Yeah.
What was that?
Well, I wouldn't tell you for the world.
Come on. Come on. What's the dirtiest thing you've done and you just feel awful about having done it?
I think at the Treasury race, I had one instance where I wanted the guy to get out, and I told him it was going to be really costly. If he didn't have the stomach for it, that maybe he should choose not to stay in. And he did make that choice.
And you had nothing on him, you just would
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, you did?
Oh, sure I did. Oh, yeah, you don't ever make empty promises.
What everyone does agree on is that you're tough as nails.
Probably so. Probably so. And I think a lot of it has to do with my mama. My mama's tough as nails.
If there's a soft side to Ann Richards, it's reserved for her family, especially the eldest granddaughter, Lily, the apple of Granny's eye. The two spent some time together on a South Texas beach this summer. They built a sandcastle of the Texas State House.
Where have you been?
Oh, I had to go back to work.
Why?
Oh, I had a bunch of bills to sign and a bunch of bills to veto.
I really love that baby. And the best part of it is that she loves me.
And that has nothing to do with politics.
Has nothing whatsoever. You see, that has to do with the inner core.
Ann Richards may represent a new kind of American success story. The middle-aged woman who takes her own life in her hands and makes it to the top.
You're doing well.
There's been speculation that she's interested in at least the vice presidential nomination. And of course, she denies it. Her heart, she says, is in Texas. And she sells Texas constantly, even to Texans who strayed from the fold. At a gala barbecue on the Mall in Washington, she sang them her siren song.
And if you are from Texas, and you find you've been up here a little too long, and you want to come home to the Armadillo, to Amarillo and Abilene, good country music and the prettiest women you've ever seen, we're ready to have you back in Texas anytime.
Old government agencies never seem to just fade away. It's one of the laws of the bureaucracy. Once a government project gets started, it's nearly impossible to shut it down, even if its mission's been accomplished, even if it's run hopelessly amok. Take the REA, the Rural Electrification Administration. By all accounts, one of the most successful government programs in history. With technical advice and low-cost government loans, the REA brought electricity and eventually telephones to rural America. But now the lights are on, the phones are in, and those low-cost government loans are going to a lot of communities that aren't exactly rural and to a lot of big corporations that don't need the subsidies. That's why its critics call the REA welfare for the wealthy. Back in the 1930s, when President Franklin Roosevelt began the REA, life on most American farms meant kerosene lamps and wood-burning stoves. No refrigeration for the milk barn, no running water, no telephone to call a doctor. The utilities in nearby cities said it was way too expensive to run lines way out here to serve only a handful of customers. So the REA gave those rural communities low-cost government loans to set up their own electric co-ops and later phone companies. And farmers like Harold Hunter say it changed life in rural America forever.
The thing that solved for me was I had running water, which I had never had in my place before.
Because of the electricity.
That's right.
But by 1981, when Harold Hunter, the farmer, went to Washington and took over as REA administrator, he thought the agency's mission was accomplished. After all, 99% of American farms already had electricity, and the average farm was more likely to have a phone than the average city apartment. Hunter couldn't figure out why his agency was still in business. Yet the REA was lending $800 million a year at bargain basement interest rates to co-ops and companies he says didn't need the money then and still don't need the money today.
One thing is it's a burden to the taxpayer. The other thing is it's not needed.
And you told people this when you were in Washington as head of the REA.
I did.
And what did they say?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
If the REA is not broke, the government nearly is, and those REA loans are one part of the problem. When the REA began, it was a break-even proposition for the taxpayer, lending money out at about the same rate of interest it cost the government to borrow the money. But now every time the REA makes a loan, it loses money for the taxpayer. It has to go out and borrow money at 8 or 9%. Then it turns around and lends that money out to the rural co-ops and phone companies at 5%. And who's getting those cheap 5% loans? Not the mom-and-pop phone companies. Most of them have been swallowed up by huge corporations. Last year, 44% of the REA's telephone loans went to 4 huge holding companies: GTE, Century Telephone, Alltel, and TDS, some of the most profitable companies on Wall Street. And what's more, those 5% taxpayer-subsidized loans help foot the electric bills for the ski resorts of Aspen and Vail, Colorado, and recharge the golf carts of Hilton Head, South Carolina. And they've helped finance fiber optic phone lines for some of the poshest suburbs in America. To Harold Hunter, it seems like welfare for the wealthy. So he spent 7 years doing the unthinkable for a Washington bureaucrat. He tried to put his own agency out of business. There's no doubt in your mind that this is a boondoggle.
In the way it's been treated, absolutely, without any question whatsoever. There is money being wasted in REA.
And people in Washington know it.
I don't see how they can miss it.
Undersecretary of Agriculture Roland Vautour hasn't missed it. Vautour oversees the REA for the Bush administration. He says there's nothing he can do about it. Under the current law, if a co-op or a phone company qualified for REA money in the old days, it qualifies for REA money today, even if it's been bought up by a huge conglomerate, even if the farms have been turned into fairways. Once a borrower, always a borrower.
The law states that they have every right in the world to apply for, and if they meet the criteria, to receive a loan. And the loan rate is 5%.
So if a company comes to you asking for a break, a subsidy, a sizable subsidy, you're not allowed to ask the question, do they need the money?
No, we're not.
This isn't exactly what FDR had in mind back in 1935 when this program started up, is it?
Oh, I'm sure that's probably the case.
So if you were a community that had 1,500 people in 1935 or 1936 and borrowed money, you can continue to borrow money now even though you're a resort?
That's
like
correct.
Aspen, Colorado, or Hilton Head, South Carolina?
That's correct.
It's crazy.
What can I say?
It just shows you a characteristic of so many government programs. Once they get started and they achieve success, you can't shut them down. You just can't shut them down.
In the 1980s, President Reagan's budget director, Jim Miller, sent budget after budget up to Capitol Hill trying to kill the REA. And he's just one in a long line of budget directors who have tried to pull the REA's plug.
You tried.
We tried. In the 1988 budget, we said quit lending to companies that have plenty of money, quit lending for programs in resort areas like Hilton Head and Aspen and those kind of places, and Congress said no.
What were their arguments against doing away with loans to communities like Hilton Head and Aspen?
They don't have a response. They really don't. They just say, this is a part of America. You don't understand. This is a sacred cow, in other words. We can't touch it.
In fact, the definition of rural America is so broad, it even includes the South Pacific. Last year, the REA gave GTE, a corporation with $500 million in cash on hand at year's end, a $42 million loan at 5%, so a subsidiary could improve telephone service on the island of Saipan in Micronesia. But it's not just the giants that are profiting. Take the Guadalupe Valley Telephone Co-op near San Antonio, Texas. Although it's borrowed almost $5.5 million from the REA at 5%, Guadalupe, according to REA figures, has so much money on hand that it even tried to buy a failed Texas savings and loan. All of this without raising phone rates in 18 years.
Sounds to me like it's got a lot of cash. It could probably finance a lot of its expenses out of that reserve if it's in a position to buy an S&L. But the important thing here is that this system does not differentiate on the ability, on the need of the company for the cash.
Even such simple reforms as allowing the REA to determine if a borrower really needs the money get clobbered by the time they get to Capitol Hill.
You understand Washington. What's going on here?
The telephone lobbies and the electric lobbies are very effective. And Congress responds to it.
Is this a powerful lobby?
Very powerful lobby. Very powerful.
And it's not just professionals. Every year, the Rural Electric Lobby brings some 2,000 local co-op members to Washington and turns them loose on Capitol Hill.
They're all folks from back home who talk the language from back home. And the elected representatives listen to that. And when you have 1,500 to 2,000 descend in 1 month, in 1 week, actually, it has a very, very strong impression.
The co-ops, through their trade organization, exhibit a great deal of clout on Capitol Hill. Part of being in on this gravy train means that you ought to spread a little of the gravy up there on Capitol Hill. Wouldn't you do that? Sure. And so it's
And they've done it.
They've done it. They spent over $1 million on campaigns, campaign contributions, and other activities like that. And that makes a difference on Capitol Hill.
And even congressmen without a cow barn or a cornfield within sight of their districts, people like Harlem's Charles Rangel or Chicago's Frank Annunzio, get campaign cash and regular visits thanks to something called the Adopt an Urban Congressman program, sponsored by the Rural Electric Lobby. Individual electric co-ops from the Dakotas or Georgia or Mississippi find a city slicker to call their own.
This is not a telephone company welfare program.
Lobbyist John O'Neill runs the Washington office of the National Rural Telecom Association. It's one of 4 lobbies that make sure rural phone companies stay well connected on Capitol Hill.
It is a program, and it works very successfully. that benefits rural people and urban people, as a matter of fact. Everybody's benefited every time in this country, every time you hook up another telephone in a rural area.
96% of rural America has telephones already. Why do we need to continue this program?
They don't have state-of-the-art technology that urban areas have that will allow them to participate on an equal basis with their urban counterparts in the information age. The information age is going to be a wonderful thing in this country.
So you're here lobbying in this Washington law office for the small ratepayer out in...
You bet. And as a matter of fact...
that's your primary function, and you're not representing the holding companies and all these different phone companies?
I represent telephone companies, but if I can make the point, the reason that this program, I think, is as successful as it is that the interest, in this case, the interest of the ratepayers and the companies providing the service are absolutely identical. And Congress understands that.
And no one in Congress seems more understanding than Oklahoma's Glenn English. Congressman English chairs the House subcommittee that oversees the REA.
The program is not aimed at telephone companies. If we're simply talking about telephone companies, this program in Congress would abandon it in a minute. The people that we're talking about are the people who are the consumers.
For Congressman English, cutting off the 5% loans and making the co-ops and phone companies pay the going rate means the end of rural America.
We might as well close down Main Street on most of the rural communities in this nation as far as the studies have indicated, because they don't have a future.
You're saying if the REA 5% loan program was done away with, these communities would dry up and blow away?
Many would. Many would. Many would not have a future. And also keep in mind...
All because of the 5% loan?
Just a minute. Also keep in mind, we're also talking about the issue of rates. The rates that are available to people who live in rural areas.
Without those cheap loans, Congressman English and members of the industry say that utilities would either refuse to improve service or be forced to raise rates sky high for rural subscribers. Undersecretary Batur says that's just not so.
If all of the electric borrowers in the electric borrowing program now were to go to market rates, and today let's assume that that's 9.5% with a government guarantee, it would average between 60 and 62 cents per customer per month increase.
Not
hardly a disaster.
Former Budget Director Miller estimates that phasing out the REA could save the taxpayer about $5 billion over 5 years.
It's about $1 billion a year that we figured that we could save the taxpayer if we were to phase this program out.
Peanuts, right?
Well, Senator Dirksen used to say $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and pretty soon it adds up to real money.
In August, the REA presented a proposal to Congress that would cut the 5% loan program and allow the REA to limit those low-interest loans only to phone companies and co-ops that can't afford to pay the market rate. So far, not one member of the House of Representatives has agreed to sponsor the REA reform.
Not run into the homeless. Andy Rooney is no exception.
They say 1 million or 2, but no one knows how many homeless there are in the United States. They're harder to count than grains of sand. You see them everywhere in the nooks and crannies of New York City. We call them homeless, but all of us make a nest wherever we are, and even the homeless make homes for themselves. They make them out of the raw materials of the city, discarded scraps of plywood, sheets of abandoned plastic, old rubber tires, and the favorite building material of all, big old cardboard boxes. The simpler homes for the homeless are just a box and a park bench. This one looks as though it might have a guest room for visitors. Somehow you can ignore 1 million different characters on the streets of New York, but the look of one homeless person in the morning can intrude on your thoughts for the rest of the day. The street people are often social misfits who don't want to be cogs in society's wheel. Whose fault? Our fault? My fault?
Well, in a way it is my fault. In a way it is society. Society is a bad word. I guess you could say in a way it was my fault.
Mostly my fault, but it just happened to be the wrong circumstance at the wrong time. You know, timing was wrong.
The only reason why I'm homeless is because I was with the wrong people and because of drugs.
I don't know. Drugs did it to me.
Yeah. Do you mind being homeless?
Nope.
You don't mind it?
Well, I do mind it, but like the way things are these days,
You're not unhappy?
very unhappy.
It seems likely that the homeless we see on the streets in New York are not the saddest cases. The saddest cases are hidden away, unseen. The mother with children, the elderly indigent, the mentally ill. Most of us are torn between sympathy and impatience with the homeless. That's probably because some of them deserve our sympathy, others our impatience. Many of the homeless are simply inept at living. Life gets away from them. They can't cope, and they're sentenced to long-term unhappiness because of that. Like each of us, to some extent, the homeless are victims of their own incompetence. When we feel sorry for them, we see in them a little of ourselves.
Time now for the mail. About our story entitled The Trashing of Clayton Hartwig, the sailor who was blamed for the explosion aboard the USS Iowa, a viewer wrote, "Nice hatchet job on the Navy. I suppose it never occurred to your microscopic anti-military minds to present a balanced report." But another viewer said about the accusations against Hartwig, "What would you expect from the good old boy Annapolis Network?" And there was this. By picking on a suspected homosexual, the Navy must have figured they could kill two birds with one stone. One, evade liability, and two, strengthen their case against gays. About our story, looking into the bizarre murder committed in London with a poison umbrella, a viewer wanted to know, was it less bizarre when the CIA tried to kill Fidel Castro with an exploding cigar? Our story on Johnny DeMichelis, the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs, and his unconventional, to say the least, attitude toward women, brought a slew of letters. Here is our favorite. "I would be crushed if my husband did what he did. I only hope you send a copy of the tape to what's-his-name's wife." Finally, two letters mystified us. The first, "I am shocked that Dan Rather would call what DeMichelis does the good life." And the second, most disturbing, was Mike Wallace's obvious envy and admiration. Not only did Rather and Wallace have nothing to do with Morley Safer's story, Morley isn't even sure they saw it. I'm Ed Bradley. We'll be back next week with another edition of 60 Minutes.